It's been a while since we've driven a bus. Some of us may have actually forgotten how to do a proper pre-trip.
I'll tell you someone who hasn't forgotten, and that's Val Batteen. Val taught my twin brother Ted how to drive a school bus. Ted is so impressed he has pictures of Val throughout his hall. He calls it Valhalla. Here's Val showing us how to get our buses ready.
Thank you, Newsroom, and welcome back, fellow drivers. At the beginning of the year, we'd like to go over the steps again to remind you how to do a proper driver pre-trip on your bus. A pre-trip needs to be done before you back your bus out of the yard and take off for the day to pick up your kids, because it's all about safety. So we're going to demonstrate a driver pre-trip for you this morning. So let's get started. As I'm approaching the bus, I'm checking to make sure that the bus is level. One of the things that might cause it not to be level would be a low tire, maybe a broken shock or a leaf spring. Now, as I approach the service door, I'm going to check and make sure that the service door is working properly, that it closes in and out as it should. And now we're going to get on the bus. I'm going to make sure the door is in the automatic position on the switch. I'm going to get into my driver's seat. Even though this bus has been assigned to me for several months, I'm going to make sure that my driver's seat is in the proper position, that my thighs are parallel to the floor and my feet are touching, that I can reach the gas pedal and the brake without effort. I'm going to adjust the steering wheel in the position where it's comfortable for me. Next, I'm going to check my mirrors. I like to do this now while things are quiet, and I can adjust my mirrors, making sure that my upper flat mirrors, I can see about 1 inch of the bus on both sides. The red reflector, the red light on the top of the corner of the bus in the back. That way I can see 200 feet behind my bus. My convex mirrors are adjusted so that I can see the lower half of the bus, the rear dualies touching the ground, and about 12 feet out are the lanes next to me on both sides. My convex mirrors, I can see directly in front of the front bumper, which is a very difficult blind spot when you're loading and unloading children, and about 6 to 10 feet out in front. You also want to be able to see down both sides of the steering tires. This will help you stay centered in your lane when you're traveling down the road. The next thing I'm going to do, after checking my mirrors, making sure that my seat is in the correct position, is I'm going to turn the key to the on position. Not turn it over, but into the on position. And I'm going to let the gauges cycle. That means I'm going to let the computer check all of the systems on the bus before I actually turn the bus over. I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking at my idiot lights, and I want to point out that the ABS light is most important. The ABS light will go on and go off. That means it is working. That's part of the systems on the bus. That's the automatic braking system. I'm checking to make sure that my brake air gauges, both of them, have come up, and the normal operating range is between 90 and 120 psi. My voltmeter should be reading between 12 and 14 volts. Fuel gauge is there to let us know that when it gets down to half, we should refuel our buses. The speedometer, of course, is there to tell us how fast we're going in miles per hour. The tachometer is there to tell us how fast the engine revolutions in hundredths. The water temperature gauge should never get over 230 degrees. And our oil pressure could read anywhere between 20 and 65 psi. It varies per bus. The DEF meter, that's the diesel exhaust fluid, we should have the mechanics refill that when it gets down to a quarter. Don't let it get below a quarter. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is turn the engine over and actually start it. Checking my gauges, and I'm going to go ahead at this point, and I'm going to, if my gauges read above 85 psi, I'm going to pump it down so that the governor will cut in the air compressor. And right there is 85 psi, and now my governor is cutting in, which means increasing air pressure. And we're going to let that increase in air pressure, and it should cut out between 120 and 130. I'm going to go ahead and do the high idle. And that will increase the air pressure quicker. While that's increasing, I'm going to go ahead and test my windshield wipers, making sure that they work in both the low and the high position. I'm bringing up my windshield washer fluid. Yep, it's working good, low, high. Checking my dome lights. Inside dome lights are working. My heater fans, low, high. Midship heater, low, high. Stairwell heater, low, high. And driver heater and defrost, low, high. My fan switches are working, low, high, and low, high. And now while I'm leaving one fan switch on, I'm going to test my noise cancellation switch, which is the red switch on your dash. Yep, that's working. So now I know that I can cancel all my noises when I cross over the railroad tracks. Ah, did you hear that? That was the governor cutting out the air compressor between 120 and 130. Okay, make sure my horn works, and it is. And I'm making sure that I don't have more than 1 inch of play in either direction on my steering wheel. It's good shape. Now I'm going to turn on my 3 light systems. Light system 1 is my headlights, which also turns on my marker lights. Light system number 2 is the 4-way hazard lights. That's right on top of the column there. And then my 3rd light system are my student lights, also known as the 8-ways. First, I'm going to turn them on. It's the thumb button on the steering wheel. It activates my amber 8-ways. I can see that by flashing amber in the dash, and I can also see them in my crossover mirrors. Okay, now I need to check that my hazards and my amber 8-ways student lights are working in the back of the bus. So I'm going to get out of the seat, and as I go back to the back of the bus, I'm going to check my emergency exit windows, all 4 of them in the morning. I'm going to check that the seat back cushions are snug and secure. I'm going to look for trip hazards. I'm going to glance up at my roof exits and make sure that they're snug and tight. So follow me back to the back of the bus. As I approach the back of the bus, I'm going to make sure that I have 3 points of contact. Foot, foot, and I'm hanging onto the back rest of the seat number 12. Now I'm going to open the door and I'm going to look and check my amber student lights on the left side of the bus, and then I'm going to twist and check them on the right side of the bus. Okay, they are working. Now as I go forward, I'm going to check the seat bottom cushions. You check them from the back of the seat because they hinge forward. And I'm going to touch the frames at the same time to make sure they're secured to the floor. Now we're going to do our outside walk around. As we do this, I'm making sure that my student lights have turned from amber to red in the dash and in my crossover mirrors. I can see that my stop sign is out and my crossing arm is out. As I go down the stairs, I'm going to make sure I have 3 points of contact: foot, foot, and handrail. My handrail is tight. My modesty panels are in place. My interior stair light is on, as is my exterior. I'm going to walk around to the front. My mirror bracket is snug and straight. Crossover mirrors. My crossing arm is fully extended. Front of my bus, all my marker lights are on, as are my student lights, my headlights and turn signals. The lettering is in good shape. and so is the windshield and the windshield wipers. There are no leaks under the engine of the bus. My panels are secured. All of my windows and side of the bus is in good shape, the lettering and so forth. Now I'm going to look under the bus, making sure that there's nothing hanging down. Everything looks in good shape. Good tread on the wheels and tires. Everything appears to be properly inflated. My airbags are inflated. Mud flaps are secured. Walking around to behind the bus, all of my decals, reflectors, lights are in good shape. Gonna open the door. There's my emergency rear exit alarm, making sure that the door locks into place. Tow hooks are in good shape. The exhaust system is working properly. Looking down this side of the bus, I can see it looks the same as the other side. It's in good shape. I'm going to check my fuel door. It is working. My fuel cap is secured and tight. My fuel tank is secured and there are no leaks. This side looks the same as the other side. My student bus number is legible and my route number is the correct route number here. Okay, now as I board the bus, checking for any obstructions on the stairs itself, and they look good. Now that I'm back in the driver's seat, I'm going to turn the bus off, and before I turn it back on, I got to turn it into the auxiliary position to deactivate child checkmate. Of course, I don't have any sleeping kids on during my pre-trip. It's just a good habit to be in to check seat to seat, side to side. There we go. All right, now I'm going to start the brake check. So I'm going to turn the key into the on position, but not turn the engine over. With the key in the on position, I'm going to let my gauges cycle. You can hear them clicking. And I'm going to firmly step on the foot brake to push off the spring brake. There we go. Now, with the spring brake off, I can perform the static air loss test. And that takes 1 minute. And we're looking at our gauge to make sure it does not lose more than 2 psi in 1 minute. The second part of the brake check is the applied air pressure brake check. So while firmly stepping on the foot brake, I'm going to watch my gauges, and after an initial discharge of air, I'm going to check and make sure that it does not lose more than 3 psi for 1 minute. This is why it's important to have a timepiece with a second-hand feature so that you can be accurate about this, because this is very important. It needs to be done not only in the morning for your driver pre-trip, but midday and your PM pre-trip. Okay, so it has not lost more than 3 psi. So now I'm going to pump the brakes down, and I'm going to watch for the low air pressure indicator to come on. It should come on between 65 and 55 psi. Now, you don't need to do the machine gun method where it's no, that's hard on the brakes. Just a couple of taps and look at that. It's come on right about, on my bus, right there between 60 and 65 psi. I'm going to continue to pump my brakes down so that the spring brake will pop out, and that'll pop out between 45 and 20 psi. I'm watching and listening. There we go. It's popped out between 30 and 35 psi on this bus. It may be different on yours. Now, before I turn the key on, because we want to test this spring brake, I'm going to do what's called safe start. That means I'm going to put it into drive, and I'm going to try and turn the bus over. It doesn't do it. Good. It should only turn over in neutral. So now I've got it in neutral, and I'm going to turn the bus over. Before the governor has a chance to pump in through the compressor a lot of air pressure, I'm going to test this spring brake by stepping firmly on the brake, putting it into reverse, and reverse is the gear we want you to use. Listen, you can hear the backup alarm, and I'm going to let my foot completely off the brake. The bus should not move, and it's working. So now I'm going to put it back in neutral, and I'm going to let the air pressure build up. While that's building up, I will begin to do my DVIR, Driver Vehicle Inspection Report. This needs to be filled out. In the morning, it'll be column number 1. In the midday, column number 2. And in the PM route, it'll be column number 3. Of course, fill it out the appropriate mileage at the appropriate numbers, and of course you need to sign and print your name. This needs to be filled out. This is required by federal DOT regulations. And you can use the high idle again to bring up your air pressure. Now there is one more part of the brake check that we need to do, and that's while traveling in the forward position at 5 miles an hour in the yard. We're going to do what's called equal pressure brake check, and that's we're